Welcome back to the channel. This week I've got something a little bit different for you. I'm going to go through 10 music conspiracy theories. That's right, music conspiracy theories. And I think it's important to point out a few things. First of all, I'm not saying that I believe any of this stuff. In fact, most of it I think is absolute bullshit. But I just thought it'd be fun to run through some of the some of the theories that people have had over the years. Many of them you'll have heard before, I'm sure, but it's just a bit of fun. And secondly, I only just realised I've only got 9. I thought I had a list of 10, I've got 9. I've got to record this now, so that's the way it goes. Anyway, let's get straight into it. First one is probably the most recent, I guess. And I'm sure all of you will have heard this one. If this one is true as well, this is one of the most harrowing ones, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's the death of Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell. Now this one's shrouded in theories of what actually happened. Well, I've got to be a bit careful, I suppose, with what I say with this stuff, because YouTube's very sensitive to this kind of thing. From what I understand, I believe there are many people who believe that Chester and Chris, who were good friends, by the way, were very much involved in a documentary that was looking to uncover, let's say, nasty shit going on with many prime figures. I don't know if that made any sense or not, but I'm sure you know exactly what I'm fucking saying. Not only is it Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell, but I've heard Anthony Bourdain's name attached to this as well. A lot of the elites wanting to shut them up, I guess, if this one's true. But I'm a little unsure about this one. I think it's worth pointing out on this one that the families and many people surrounding them have actually come out and said that they think that this one's bullshit, as in the conspiracy theory. I remember reading about Chester having a particularly horrific childhood and the trauma, the scars that follow you through life throughout that. And I believe that Chris also had, well, not to the same extent as Chester, but I know he had some pretty harsh shit going on in his childhood as well. So I think a lot of people have actually said that. No, I think that this one was actually two people who were very unhappy and did what they did. Either way, rest in peace to both of them. Horrific stuff either way. Yes. Not much else to say there, really. Moving on to conspiracy theory number 2. Kurt Cobain was actually murdered. So I think I'll run through some of the reasons why some people think that this one has some water. Apparently, the heroin levels in his bloodstream were too high. Many seem to think that the amount that he'd taken would have rendered him incapable of actually lifting the shotgun and pulling the trigger. While others say, well, everyone's tolerances are different and, you can build up to that stuff and, it could well be. Another one is the interpretation of his suicide note. Am I allowed to say that? His I fucking hate having to say that. Unaliving note. It sounds so much more impersonal, doesn't it? Anyway, there are people who theorise that the note that he left was actually saying goodbye to music, because that's what he needed to get away from, or more specifically, I guess, the lifestyle that came with it. And many theorise that the last parts of the letter, which do actually deal with death, were forged and added later. Then there's talk of relationship turmoil. I think there was talk of him divorcing Courtney Love. And there's theories that she had something to do with it. And lastly, I think many people think that there were inconsistencies in the actual police investigation itself, that it was closed far too early and should have been at least, homicide should have at least been, looked into. Apparently it wasn't. It would seem that the conspiracy theory side of this one comes from people's interpretation of the investigation as opposed to any actual real evidence. So let me know your thoughts. Personally speaking on this one, I think it was what it was. I think he was somebody who, starting out in a band, probably thought of, it'd be great to be in a big band, but at the back of his head didn't think Nirvana would ever get to where they got. I mean, if you look at where they were with Bleach and then where they went with Nevermind, he went from a nobody to being one of the most famous people on the planet almost overnight. And being the sensitive sort of introverted person that he was in the first place, I'm saying now, I couldn't handle that. I couldn't fucking handle that. So, yeah, to me, I think it's pretty simple. Next up, we're going to a fun one. It's satanic messages in music. Ah, yes, those of you who are as old as I am, you old fucks like me, you'll remember the 80s satanic panic. We had video nasties as well. Those are the days. The PMRC, fronted by Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife. I believe that's what birthed the parental guidance stickers. Did anybody else go out of their way to listen to that stuff because it was so controversial? Because, you know, for me, like a parental guidance sticker was almost like a badge of honor on a CD. It was like, oh, I've got to check this out. I thought the same with the video nasty stuff. Because if you actually go back and watch a lot of that 80s horror stuff, a lot of it is actually kind of shit. You know what I mean? A lot of it is actually just really shit, tacky films. But the fact that they put them out as video nasties and made such a big... I think those films are way bigger now because of the video nasty thing. If they'd have just shut their mouths and not said anything, I don't think anyone would have given a fuck about them as much. Evil Dead's great though. Yeah, a lot of this was down to people thinking there were satanic messages in records. So, for example, when you played vinyl backwards, it would have hidden messages. I've actually got some a list of some here. Apparently in Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven, when played backwards, you hear, "Here's to my sweet Satan." Judas Priest, of course, "Better by you, better than me." Apparently when you play it backwards, "Do it." I know this was one of the big cases I remember hearing about. There's some other ones there, but yeah, I remember the Judas Priest one. Yeah, 2 teens attempted and the band was accused of subliminal messages urging them to do it. This whole thing just turned out to be a whole bunch of shite. I remember Rob Halford, I can't remember who else from Priest come in as well, but they defended themselves very well, very intelligently. I can't remember if it was the same thing as well, but Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, there's some great scenes of him in the courtroom walking in with his hair all over the place and just jeans and a t-shirt, and everybody looking at him and clearly not taking him seriously, and he fucking wiped the floor with them. I love that. I love seeing that sort of shit. You know, the underdog just coming out on top and, like, you know, being able to battle with the wits of anyone, which is more than I can do. I struggle to say that last sentence. Okay. I don't know if this is quite a recent one. I know that there was a documentary that was released not so long ago about it. I don't know if this one has been around for a while, but there are many who speculate that Jim Morrison of The Doors is not actually dead. He faked his own death to get away from the fame and the, you know, the shit that was going on. I don't know, there's a part of me that can kind of see this with some of these people because, again, a lot of times the desire to create, especially those of the lyricist, there's often that fucked up, sensitive side of them, you know, the poet. I mean, he could be a real prick as well, Jim Morrison. You know, I went through a bit of a Morrison phase back in the day. Not literally, just as in listening to a lot of The Doors and reading some of his books about him. And yeah, he did seem like a bit of a prick, to be quite honest. Much like Kurt Cobain, there are people who look at inconsistencies in the police investigation. Apparently he died of a heart attack and there was no autopsy. Why was there no autopsy? Apparently his death certificate was signed by a doctor that nobody could then later trace. And also, apparently, by the time the Doors manager turned up to the scene, Morrison's body had already been put into a sealed coffin. So, I don't know. And the American press didn't get hold of any information about any of this until 2 days after he had already been buried in France. So a lot of inconsistencies there. I mean, a lot of this stuff could be kind of just people wanting it to be true. You know, it's like folklore, you know, cryptids and stuff like that. I say as I'm sort of in this expanse of open land where, you know, there could be shit lurking about. A couple of you have mentioned that in the videos, actually, when you're actually watching these, you are actually kind of keeping... How many times I say actually? You actually look around to see if there's anything in the background when I'm making them. That'd be quite weird, wouldn't it? Probably get me some views, though. Yeah, I could do that, yeah. I could fake that. There are also other parts of this that can back up this theory. He used to tell friends that he always dreamed of disappearing, much like Arthur Rimbaud. Rimbaud, yeah. The French poet who vanished at 21. I presume at age 21 as opposed to, you know, at 21. I don't know what. Anyway, I've said too much. We'll move on. But what's your thoughts? Jim Morrison, be he dead or be he alive? Do you give a fuck? Another one about death. Paul McCartney is in fact actually dead. You've all heard this one. He's dead. There are those that believe that he actually died in 1966 in a car accident. Some theorists say that the band couldn't deal with the loss of him, so therefore carried on with a stand-in bloke. I was going to say clone then, but that's, you know, that's a bit far-fetched. There are others that are saying that they were forced to do it, and that the band started to feel so bad about this that they were duping their fans that they started leaving hidden messages in much of their work. Crafty bastards. They were clever, weren't they? I think one of the most recognised theories is that of the Abbey Road cover, where, of course, you have all 4 band members walking across the zebra crossing at Abbey Road Studios, or outside Abbey Road Studios, should I say. Paul is the only one who's barefoot. Apparently he's walking out of step compared to the others. Which is supposed to symbolise a funeral march, I believe. And I think there was also, he was holding his cigarette in his right hand, even though he was left-handed. This, of course, could also just be bollocks. You know, the more I'm going through this list, I am kind of wondering why I'm doing this one. Now, this next one you've all heard of, but there's no way I couldn't include it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's about Elvis Presley faking his death. Second of all, it gives me an excellent opportunity to be able to talk about the incredible B-movie starring Bruce Campbell and Ossie Davis, Bubba Ho-Tep. Fucking great film. Watch it if you haven't. We'll get back to Bubba Ho-Tep in a second. I don't know, there's a couple of reasons I think this one's bullshit. Mainly because he actually died of a heart attack on the toilet. You'd think that if you were going to fake your own death, maybe you do something a bit more glamorous. Then again, maybe that is that much more believable. Maybe he's a clever bastard and that's why he did it. But I think the main one comes from, I think the main theory on this one comes from the sightings of lookalikes from as far back as the 80s. People convinced that they actually saw Elvis and that he is alive and well. I don't know. He was genuinely one of the most known people on the planet at that time. You know, Elvis was fucking everywhere. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe if you had the means, if you had the money, and you know, you just want to get the hell away, maybe you could do it. I don't know. Anyway, Bubba Ho-Tep. But anyway, for those of you who haven't seen it, Bubba Ho-Tep, right? So in the film, Elvis actually swaps places with a lookalike who takes over. The lookalike actually dies, but then Elvis walks off into the sunset. It tracks him down years later when he's actually in an OAP home, along with Ossie Davis, who plays a guy who thinks that he's JFK. So yeah, they're in an OAP home, and it just so happens that also there is an ancient Egyptian entity that sucks the souls out of people, literally their assholes. It's great. I mean, come on. Watch Bubba Ho-Tep if you haven't seen Bubba Ho-Tep. Jesus Christ. Next up, we got a bit of a fun one. Stevie Wonder isn't actually blind. Now, this one's actually based on a couple of stories from some other celebrities, namely Shaquille O'Neal and Danny Glover, a.k.a. Childish Gambino. I'll read out the Shaquille O'Neal story. We both lived in a building in Wiltshire Boulevard, so Shaquille O'Neal and Stevie Wonder. Not in the same house, probably, but you know. So you park your car under and the valet takes it down there. I'm already in the building and coming through the lobby. The elevator door opens. It's Stevie Wonder. He comes in, says, "What's up, Shaq?" He presses the button, gets off on the floor by himself and goes to his room. Apparently, Shaquille O'Neal then went and told every single person that he could find what had just happened. If he was blind, how was he able to do that so easily? How was he able to tell that it was Shaquille O'Neal? How was he able to just dial in the number of the floor that he wanted to go to and go straight off to his room? Donald Glover apparently was talking on a late night talk show about how he was texting back and forth with Stevie Wonder. How would he do that? Now, whether this was done for comedic purposes or not, I don't know. But there's genuinely people who seem to believe that Stevie Wonder isn't actually blind. I don't care. But, you know, it was another one to put it down here. Another one that I'm sure that many of you are aware of is the Avril Lavigne replacement theory. This one stems from the fact that in 2002, when her career was really starting to blow up, she really did struggle with the fame side of things. So much so that her label started using a body double named Melissa Vandella to stand in for her. The theory goes that Lavigne actually died shortly after the release of her debut album, Let's Go, in 2003. So her team began using Melissa full time. And what was the proof of this? The real Avril Lavigne wore trousers, whereas the stand-in wore skirts and more girly sort of things. So, I don't know, couldn't that just be a record company sort of trying to sexualise her as well and get more money? That wouldn't surprise me. That's never happened. That sort of thing's never happened before. And this is another one where, apparently, in this case, Melissa added clues and subliminal messaging to allude to the situation that was going on, such as in 2004 Slipped Away, which contains the lyrics, "The day you slipped away was the day I found out it won't be the same." I mean, that just sounds like a love song to me, but, you know, who knows? It keeps, you know, some pop punk people doing stuff. So, and it gave me a segment in a video, so, you know, views. And the last one that I've got here, as I said, I've only got 9, not 10. Michael Jackson isn't actually dead. Yes, he's another one that faked it. Now, I could understand why he faked it. We all know towards the end of his life, there was many, many, many accusations against the man. Also, there was all sorts of legal costs, and he was losing all his money and his possessions. And so, yeah, one could understand why he would just want to fuck off. In 2009, shortly after this, there was a hoax video that went around with Michael Jackson supposedly stepping out of the coroner's van. It was all just revealed later to be a hoax, but I think there were a lot of people who took this one very seriously. And this is another one like Elvis, where there's been reports of sightings of the man at parties and all this sort of stuff. There are actually reports that he lives in Gloucestershire. And there's even a website, michaeljacksonsightings.com. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I live in Gloucestershire. I've never seen him. I'm not really looking out for him either. Shame, I used to like his music. Do you know what I mean? Is that an awkward outro? Does that constitute an awkward outro? It could do, couldn't it? I think we'll go with that. I'll see you next time. I've done enough today. Bye. I'm on 2 weeks holiday now. So I'll be filming more stuff for my second channel, Benneth. That's not done as well as I thought. It's awkward, isn't it? I'll do.